All right, today we're going to come at you with a new tying video. I'm going to be tying a variation of a jigged squirrel leech. This is going to be using kind of a combination of materials, pine squirrel zonkers, Dave Whitlock's SLF dub. That's going to be a squirrel dub mixed with some synthetic fibers. It's a really cool little buggy dubbing. Creepy crawly ice dub for a little kind of legginess to the leech, and some CDC for the collar. This is going to be a great fly to use in still water, also in rivers. It's just going to be a really good overall pattern to have on hand, especially as we head through winter into spring. All right, so up here in the vise is going to be a Tiemco 403 BLJ. It's a barbless 60-degree jig hook. A little trick here for getting beads on jig hooks. If you hang it in your vise like this, it makes it a little bit easier to mount the bead. So go ahead and get the bead on there. Clamp it, turn it over. Got a spare set of jaws on the way for this vise. It's definitely overdue. All right, so first things first, we're gonna go ahead and lay a nice thread dam with our jam knot behind the bead here. It's gonna keep the bead from wiggling around. I went ahead and I'm going to mix it up today. I'm going to use this peacock blue thread. That way right behind the collar, kind of right behind the bead, there's a little hot spot. And I think it'll look good on this fly. Run this all the way back to right about where you would imagine the barb being on the hook. I'm going to take a piece of pine squirrel zonker. I've got the brown here. Just the standard brown. I really like brown. I like rust. I'm going to measure about 3 times the length of the shank of the hook. This fly is going to have a nice jigging action. What I like to do is moisten my fingers, and I like to pry the hide apart right there where I'm going to tie it in. I'll hold it with my left hand kind of a little bit on my side of the hook. I'm going to spin my bobbin. That way that first wrap really captures the zonker. Gives me an opportunity to kind of adjust it, make one more loose wrap, kind of get it right where I want it to be. All right, and then I'm going to pull towards me to really tighten that zonker strip right up on top of that hook. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and advance the thread in front of the strip, start to create a little bit of a body. Capture that one more time. Make sure that strip's not going to go anywhere. Pull tight. All right, now I'm going to do a composite loop. This is a really great way to build body in your flies. That's something you got to set up ahead of time, but once you've got it set up, it really makes the tie pretty quick. First, I'm going to jam this, toss this wire on here. That way, when I'm done building the body of this fly, I can counter wrap it with some wire. Keep it nice and sturdy. Get that wire tied in. Easy step to forget. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and make my loop. So I've just doubled my thread over, and I'm going to tie it in right in the back here. Now I'm going to go ahead and wrap, make 2 wraps around both ends of that loop so it's a nice tight V where I'm tying my materials in. Advance my thread forward. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my little dubbing spinner here and a little dubbing wax. This really helps hold the materials nicely in the thread. Just going to kind of paint that on the thread. Now I've pre-staged a couple of different materials here that I'm going to be using in this composite loop. Really the main material you're going to use is going to be SLF dubbing. You make a little base layer first, down, then I'm going to use the creepy crawly dub in between, and then another layer of the SLF Dave Whitlock dubbing on top. That kind of sandwiches it together and makes a better composite loop. I'm going to use my little clamp here. I'm going to grab the bundle, and I'm going to go ahead and put this as high up in this little V as I can. Something to keep in mind when you're doing composite loops. Generally speaking, 1 inch material in your loop equals about 3 wraps. So I'm going to kind of get this, shimmy this up a little bit. Basically, I'm looking to have about 2 inches or so material total at the end. And then I'm going to be finishing with CDC around the collar. So I'm going to go ahead and I've got 2 CDC feathers stacked together. I'm going to drop them in. To the loop. And then what we'll do is we'll take our scissors and we're going to cut half the feather off. We lost a little bit, but that's okay. So in total, I've got about 2.5 inches of material in this composite loop. That's going to be more than enough here. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and throw a little 1/2 hitch in. And hang my bobbin out of the way and go ahead and give it a spin. For that first spin, I like to take a pick and I like to pick out anything that's trapped, or as much of it as I can. Particularly that creepy crawly ice dub, that stuff is awesome. I really want that bugginess in this fly, so I'm going to be sure to pick out as much of that as I can. I'll give it another little light twist. I'm using a UTC 140 thread. That's something you want to keep in mind when you're doing this. You don't want to use like a 70 or lighter, because generally you'll end up breaking the thread if you twist it too much. These flies, the more you pick it out, the better it'll end up looking. Once I get it picked out, I like to do one little pass with the wire brush. And yeah, we're up at the shop. The shop is open, so you might hear the phone ringing. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and twist this up. This is going to make the body of the fly. So I'm going to start all the way at the back, right where the zonker's tied in. So after about 3 wraps, there's that 1 inch material, which was just squirrel dubbing, SLF dubbing. And then my next 3 wraps are going to be just this creepy crawly. And then the final 3 wraps are going to be just the CDC. Be sure your thread's advanced all the way forward. Midway through, I can pick some of this out. So just make it easier. And then 1, 2, 3. I got room for 4, maybe even 5. The more wraps you put up at the front of this fly like this, the bushier and more water it'll push. All right, there's the whole loop. Now I'm going to capture the loop behind with my thread in front. A couple more times behind. Be careful not to trim my thread in that moment. All right, so that's the body of the fly. Now what we're going to do is we're going to pick out any other trap fibers that we can. This is kind of our last chance to give this fly a buggy look. The idea when you're stacking these materials in the actual clamp and on the table here, I've got another little pinch for my next fly, is you want to keep it really sparse. You don't want too much dubbing, too much of that creepy crawly. So keep it nice and sparse. Once you've got, I feel like you've got a lot of it picked out, I'm going to brush it back. I'm going to create kind of a little split. I want most of this material to be hanging out. So when I peel this zonker strip over, I'm kind of creating like a butt cut, like a part for it to land. So I'm gonna go ahead and drop this over right where my thread's hanging. I'm gonna do one loose wrap, two loose wraps, kind of give it a good look. Two wraps. And I'm going to leave a little bit of a pad to be sure I can really tie that in well. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my wire that I tied in, and I'm going to counter wrap it. Just trying not to trap too many fibers. You can kind of go in here with your pick and kind of make a little spot for it to go. Probably only going to need about 3 wraps of the wire, so kind of space them accordingly. Okay, 3 wraps. I'm going to trap this wire up front once, twice. Go ahead and helicopter it off. Trim a little bit of that out. I'm just going to go ahead and bring my thread forward. Make a nice little collar. And a whip finish. One 3-turn whip finish. A second. Just a little UV glue to secure those knots. Give it a coating. Hit it with the white. All right, now once that's done, you can really brush this thing out. Make sure you get all that good stuff untrapped. Take care of like any of the long extra fibers. And then if you find out you made it a little too long, which I did, you can kind of come in here and cut the back, but you want to be sure you get underneath that fur before you cut. All right, so there's a little CDC kind of buggy, flashy squirrel leech. It's something you can fish in still water or rivers. Thanks for watching.